Hi everyone, I just want to apologise for the very dark lighting. There's currently a yellow storm warning outside, but I do think it makes it kind of cosy. I haven't done a recent reads or a reading wrap up in a while. I remember sitting down, I think, to do one at the end of August, and I felt like I didn't have enough books to talk about, and then I was just too busy, just didn't have time. So I finally have some time now to sit down and talk about all the books, and I actually think this is from July until the end of October. These are all the books I've read. But what I'll do is make timestamps. So if you want a particular review on a particular book, you can just skip to that section if you want. I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 books. Some are series, so I'll put them together. But I think it's roughly 10 books that I read. Yeah, I'm not the quickest reader in the whole world, so that's a lot to me. Might not be a lot to others. But yeah, just wanted to dive right in. So I'll go with the first one, and that is The Final Girl Support Group. So this is by Grady Hendrix, who is quite a famous horror thriller writer, I believe. But this is my first book I've ever read of theirs. So yeah, the premise of this is you have these, I think it's 6 women are part of this support group. They're all final girls, so they all survived horrific events. These are all inspired by actually real life horror movie plot points. So I think one of the girls is inspired by Scream, another woman, her story is inspired by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So examples like that. So I think this is definitely for, I think, people who are fans of those movies and want to read something quite like those. But yeah, you have these women, they're all in this support group. They all start to get picked off, or attempted to get picked off. So yeah, this definitely is more of a thriller than a horror. It definitely has some horrific depictions in this, but it's definitely more of a thriller. Kind of a bit like a slasher movie, but it definitely has that tone. I really quite like the writing style of it. So every chapter is kind of broken up by like a piece of media. So it might be talking about one of the girls' interviews that they've had, or a movie that was made about them, or a movie review, things like that. I thought very well written, very well written. I gave this 3 out of 5 because I know I'm not the target audience. I'm not the biggest slasher fan. I really do like Scream, like the first Scream movie. I think that's very good. This, I think if you are a straight up horror fan, you might be a little bit disappointed because it definitely leans more thriller than horror. I actually have to say there's actually a depiction of someone dying of cancer in this, so just trigger warning for that. And I actually thought that was the most unsettling thing about this. Now there is definitely depictions of violence in this that are quite horrific and like scary situations and stuff. Yeah, definitely not the scariest book in the world. I think this really strong point about this book is the main character, Lynette. I really enjoyed her. She's very dramatic. She's obviously very traumatized, has this extreme anxiety now about keeping herself safe. It definitely has a humorous tone as well. It's like not a very serious book either, and that's what I quite like about the book. I really enjoyed the main character. There is the whole book you're kind of like, is she an unreliable narrator or is she totally reliable? You have no idea, and you don't really know until the end. I thought she was really good. One of the characters in this is a plant, which was really well done too. It's actually, I'm thinking looking back, I think this book was quite good. For me, it's probably a 3.5 out of 5. Because I'm thinking of just like good things about it. But yeah, maybe just like not the most entertaining book for me. It wouldn't be a book I would naturally gravitate towards. I read this because it was the Goodreads winner last year of the horror category, so that's why I picked it up. Yeah, I thought it was fun. I don't think it was groundbreaking. It was just a bit of fun, really. Expect a thriller, not a horror book. I think that's just my only advice to picking this book up. I'm really a bit annoyed because I thought I was filming and I wasn't. So I already did a full review of A Court of Mist and Fury and A Court of Thorns and Roses, and my camera wasn't filming. But that's okay, we'll do it again. Over the past couple of months, I did read the first book in the ACOTAR series, so that is A Court of Thorns and Roses, and then I read the follow-up, A Court of Mist and Fury, and these are by Sarah J Maas. Maybe I don't need to go into too much detail because these are super popular books, but these are basically, I would say, new adult. I wouldn't say young adult, and I wouldn't say adult. Definitely new adult fantasy. Some people would say these are fantasy romance books. I would say these are fantasy books with the romance plot being very big, if that makes sense. It definitely leans more fantasy than romance. How do I describe my experience reading these? I think I have a bit of an unpopular opinion. That being, I thought the first book was better than this one. Generally, I feel like the main consensus is that the later books are better than the first one. Not the case for me, really not the case for me. So the plot of this is a very loose retelling of Beauty and the Beast. I knew it was a loose retelling going in, but I actually thought it was actually a little bit more of a retelling than I realised. especially when the plot develops towards like the climax of the book. I was like, oh no, actually it is quite like Beauty and the Beast, which is a good thing because I do think Beauty and the Beast is a fantastic story. It's one of my favorite Disney movies. I think the fairy tale is very strong. So this is a very good retelling, I feel, of Beauty and the Beast. I hope this isn't too much of a spoiler, but towards the end of this book, it actually turns into more of a trial tournament type book with some very, very high stakes. I thought this was like really heartbreaking. I thought like the things that Feyre had to do were really, really hard. In this world, you have Feyre and her family, and they're mortals. Their land is blocked off by a wall for the Fae world. There's a treaty to keep them separate. Feyre accidentally kills a Fae because she's a huntress, and because of this, she's taken back to the Fae world where she has to stay in the Spring Court with the High Lord Tamlin, basically locked up there. You know, very similar to Beauty and the Beast. I have to say, I really, really, really enjoyed this. I thought it was very interesting. I really loved the story. I really thought the plot was very strong. I really liked the romance element. I really loved the like kind of heartbreaking dramatic moments as well. I think where this falls down for me is the writing style. Like, I really didn't like the writing style that much. I found the writing style to be super, super melodramatic. Like really, really melodramatic. And I found it more so in A Court of Mist and Fury, but I'll get there. And I feel like because it's so melodramatic, I kind of took away from the story a bit, which for the plot is really good. I thought the plot was very, very, very good. And I know there definitely is improvements as you go on in the series, but there is a particular phrase. The phrase is clicking tongues. Like, this character clicked their tongue, this character clicked their tongue. To show exasperation, and I just really wish Mass did a better job at having a different description of being exasperated at some points in this book. It was just way, way, way too much, and it makes me think that this went through the editing process and they actually cut out some of it, and like what's left is still way too much. Now in fairness, I did read this very quickly. I think I read this over the course of 2 or 3 days, I think. So I think the book having a lot of repetitive phrases, I really picked up because I kind of binged it. So yeah, that's the downside to that for me. But generally, I had a really fun time reading this. Really enjoyed it. Not perfect in any sense, so I actually gave it 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. So yeah, then I moved on to A Court of Mist and Fury. So this is the follow-up. It's the second in the trilogy. So you have A Court of Wings and Ruin is next, which I have to get to. And I have to say I was quite disappointed because there was a general consensus, I feel, on BookTube and Bookstagram and that. I've heard multiple people say, okay, you know, read this, but the books get a lot better after this book. And I have to totally disagree. And I don't know if that's a really unpopular opinion or more people are with me on this. I thought this went downhill. Again, the plot is still very, very good. I still really enjoy the story. I think the story of this is going to stay with me. I don't think I'm going to forget these books anytime soon. I think I could honestly probably put this down and in a following year pick up Wings and Ruin and still remember everything, because I think the plot is actually very, very good and unique. However, with this one, I think my expectations were too high because everyone says that this is better than the first one. And yeah, I just got disappointed. Like, I was expecting at least a 4-star. This was a high 2-3 star for me, I have to say. I was very, very disappointed kind of in the middle, and then it does like pick up towards the end. So I overall gave it a 3-star. I thought the plot of this was just too much. Just too much, and it was just kind of bam, plot. It's like, give me some time to breathe and process what happened. You know, I thought too much happened. Now, if you're used to reading high fantasy, you might be used to that. I'm not. I feel like the dramatics and the melodrama was anteed up. Like in a big way. For example, like a lot of words are repeated for dramatics. So Feyre will go, maybe that's why I did it, or for things like that. It made like a very interesting plot too melodramatic for me. Things like there's actually a depiction of, let's say, Feyre fighting and using her powers. One of the plot points is her fighting the ACOTAR. I don't really know how to pronounce it. And I felt like that chapter was so ruined just by the overly dramatics of the writing style. It's like, not now, not this moment. And then descriptions of Rhys's death incarnate, night triumphant. You know, it's just like, it made like a very interesting point in the story just way too melodramatic. I think it really just took away from the plot. I do quite like the romance elements of this. I think it's very good. The found family trope is very much a big theme in this. I didn't really feel that so much. I didn't really care for the characters that much. Something that frustrated me as well was how every single character that was introduced was like the most beautiful creature that Feyre has ever seen. And the more that is said, it loses its significance. I was like, okay, Cassian's beautiful. Okay. Mor is beautiful. Okay. If everyone's beautiful, then no one's beautiful. You know, come on. So yeah, I find bits like that tough. Even things like, there's a character called Mor, and she's Rhys's cousin. And she had to be his cousin because there's no such thing as platonic relationships in this book. Or if there is, there has to be a big dramatic explanation of why it's platonic as well. Like, I didn't really enjoy that. It's just like, okay, is everyone's sex drive just like way too high in this world? Kind of it. It is a romance book, yeah. But I don't know. I just didn't really like that. I didn't really like that every single dynamic had to be explained why it wasn't sexual. So yeah, there's that. Generally, I did enjoy it. This was definitely a longer read. I did enjoy picking it up. There is a few times I found it so silly that I like put it down. I won't spoil, but there was one point where Rhys talks about his wings. He describes his wings, and I had to put the book down because I was like, okay, I've had enough. You know, I think the thing is with these though is not to take them too seriously, and you will enjoy them. And I did. Is the writing style kind of melodramatic and too much? Yes. I think you need to be in a particular mood to read these books. That's my thought. I hope Wings and Ruin picks up more. Like, I know obviously that's going to be the end of the first trilogy, so I'm hoping like it's going to be very, very good. I'm expecting the same melodrama and writing style. I'm assuming it's going to be along the same veins as this, so I'm definitely going to go in with a bit more of an open mind, but it is just a pity that I thought this would be one of my favourite books of the year and it ended up not being that. Just a pity, but still a good book. Still a good like romance book. It's always so funny. I always find these in the young adult section. They really shouldn't be. They are quite sexy, yeah. Okay. I'm going to talk about If We Were Villains by ML Rio. This is my favourite book that I've read this whole year. Yeah, this whole year. It's so good. Basically, I picked this out for a Dark Academia reads. I can link that video in the description. And I picked this out because I was going traveling, so I was like, okay, this is the longest one, I'll take this one with me. And oh my days, like my flight, like I didn't even process that I was on an airplane. I was so sucked into this story. It's so good. So yeah, this is like a dual timeline. So yeah, you have Oliver, who's the main character here, and he's just been let out of prison. He's been in prison for 10 years. He's telling the story to a retired detective who did arrest him in the first place and telling him what actually happened 10 years previously. And then you have the timeline of him being in college. Oliver goes to this like arts college where he's a Shakespearean theatre student, and it's about him and all the dynamics between the group of fourth years that are all in the same acting kind of troupe and group. So yeah, all the characters are studying Shakespeare and they all have a tendency to be typecast a lot. So kind of lines between them being on stage and their characters and them in real life are very, very blurred. One of them ends up dead. They kind of have to convince the police and like themselves that they're innocent. So there is a bit of a thriller aspect in this, like a bit of a murder mystery aspect of it. Oh my goodness, I loved this book. Loved it. I don't want to spoil it, but the ending will have you like researching like theories of what's going on. Like when I finished this book, I like lay on my bed and I like stared up to the ceiling for a good half an hour just trying to process this book. It was just so well done. So well done. You can tell ML Rio is an actual Shakespearean expert. Like, it's so well done. It reads like a play. The chapters are like Act 4, Scene 1. That's how the chapters are laid out. It does feel like you're watching a Shakespearean tragedy. It's so good. I'd say the only downside is if you're not the biggest fan of Shakespeare, the characters quote Shakespeare a lot. Like an awful lot, which I do think if they were like an acting troupe and they were Shakespearean actors, I feel like that would actually happen in real life. Maybe some readers would find that a bit too much. I actually really loved it, and none of it was ever there just for the sake of it. It always had a reason, but they do quote Shakespeare an awful lot in their normal everyday conversations, and that is obviously very pretentious, but that's the point, you know. Like, this is a very good Dark Academia novel, which is, I feel like, quite refreshing to talk about like English lit in Dark Academia, because I feel like Dark Academia tends to lean on Greek mythology an awful lot. Definitely tell that this was inspired by The Secret History. I honestly think that this is The Secret History but better. I honestly do. I think it is more well done. Even though The Secret History is fantastic, I thought this was like slightly better, but you can tell maybe the blueprint of the story was taken from The Secret History, so you have to give it its dues. Yeah, like it's even here, it's like Donna Tartt's A Secret History. So this is a story of love, friendship and obsession, so it really dives into the characters and their rivalries, their obsessions with each other, jealousy. So jealousy is probably the main theme of this book. I was heartbroken. It's like, if you like Shakespeare and you don't mind getting your heart broken, just read this book. It's so well done. I knew it would be good. But this just really took me by surprise. And I hope I'm not overhyping it for anyone. Genuinely, like even people in real life, I am recommending them to read this book. It is excellent. Yeah, just so heartbreaking. Like the dynamics are very interesting. They're very complicated. All I can say is I love this. I absolutely love this. I think I really liked the setting too. I love the school setting. I love the competitive nature of them. I loved like the really beautiful locations that they put plays on. Like the descriptions of them are so well done. This is Emil Rio's debut book. Like I can't get over that this is their first book, and I am definitely reading whatever they release next. And I read up about the author, and they did study Shakespeare themselves, so they know their stuff. Emil Rio knows their stuff. But yeah, just so entertaining, so dark, but in a good way. I just had the 5-star feel straight away. I couldn't put it down. I couldn't wait to pick it up again when I did have to put it down. I just really loved the reading process of this. I was never bored at any point either. It didn't like wilt for me in any spot. Such a good dark academia novel. So I actually don't have a physical copy of this, but I read on Readsy, which is a book review platform that I'm part of. I read the book called Pharoni, which is by Colin Dodds. I do definitely want to pick up a physical copy of it. If you're interested, a bit like Kindle Unlimited, maybe like get some free books that haven't been released yet. So the point is that you read the books and you leave a bit of a review for the author. So I'll leave a link in the description. But yeah, I'm really enjoying Readsy. In September, I read Pharoni, and this was like unlike any book I ever read. It was really unique, and it's a little bit of a kind of a light sci-fi, bit of a dystopia. It's quite wacky too, and then a bit like If We Were Villains, it's written a bit like a screenplay. Like honestly, at the end you could imagine just all the characters like bowing at the end, okay, this is a play. It is quite wacky, so when I describe it, so you have Tommy Pharoni, he's the main character, and him and his group of friends are mourning their friend Harry. He just died and they've been to the funeral and everything. There's a supernova, and after the supernova, Harry comes back from the dead. And because of this, like a new religion is formed, or a new cult is formed, spearheaded by Tommy, by the main character, based on Harry himself, the guy who resurrected. So yeah, when I describe it, it's very wacky, but it was so well done. And I think if you are a fan of like slightly wacky, maybe light sci-fi novels, you will like this. Because of this really alters the friend group's lives like in a major way. So you have Tommy starting the cult, like intentionally or unintentionally starting the cult, you're left to guess. You have Roy as well, and he creates a new like tech program where people are actually able to feel pain from a character that they're playing, and this obviously has big basically repercussions in the tech industry, because that idea can be used to manipulate other people's feelings. So it's as wacky as it sounds. Then you have like brother and sister, I think it's Andrew and Maud. They have like these really interesting depictions of what it means to work. Work is a big theme in this. Like this group of friends, they were all artists, I believe, and like in one way, shape or other, they give it up or they pursue it. There's really good discussions in this about work and work ethic and like the capitalist system we're in. What I really liked them is they're all very obviously flawed. There's no like real hero of the story. They're all kind of like bad actors. Like they're all kind of like bad characters, which I really enjoy. I really enjoy books where the main characters are definitely the anti-heroes, or they're definitely, you know, very morally grey. All of these characters are very morally grey. You know, so it does like with them comparing themselves to each other. A big theme of this is opportunism. So, or I'm not saying that right. Opportunism, maybe. So, you know, Tommy nearly piggybacking off his friend's death to create his own religion. You have everyone piggybacking off Roy when he makes this new pain technology. So there's so many like interesting themes in it. So it was like cults. There was like, what does it mean to be a tech mogul and how technology can take over the world. It talks about New York City an awful lot, like life in New York City, corporate America, and corporate all over the world, but mostly it's set in America, so it does focus on corporate America. Directions of life, having limited time and money. I have to say, I thought this was so well written for a self-published book. I think actually the author has a few books, so I would be interested to see his backlist. But I just thought this was so witty. I thought it was really funny in places. I thought it was very, very descriptive. There's parts of the book that you think are throwaway comments actually end up being so important. Like so important. And like it's quite shocking. Like it was a very shocking book. It was very straight to the point, very shocking. So one bad thing I'll say about it is that a lot of things are left ambiguous, and like I know some readers won't like that. I like a bit of ambiguity. I like trying to figure things out myself sometimes, but like this left my head, like I was scratching my head at some points in this, and I was like, oh, okay, that went from point A to point B in a very strange way. I can understand that ambiguity and things not being explained might not be for everyone. Like it doesn't explain how the supernova affected everything, things like that. I did find it this a very shocking, unique, very witty, really witty, like light sci-fi novel. Really recommend. But yeah, I had fun reading this. I binged it as well. I think I read it within like 2 days or something. But yeah, did really enjoy it. But yeah, the next 3 books I want to talk about are actually all books that I read during Vampathon, which is a readathon that I took part in. So if you want my initial thoughts on them, I can link my vlog in the description. So yeah, a book I read was The Devil Makes 3, and this is by Tori Bavellino. And this I picked out for my September Dark Academia reads. Ended up kind of spilling into October into Vampathon for me. And yeah, I have to say this was a little bit disappointing, like a little bit, mostly because I was expecting something else, and I think this book is generally very mismarketed. I was under the impression that this was a Dark Academia book. It's not in the slightest, like not even a little bit. I think the only Dark Academia that you could probably get from this would maybe be the fact that this is set in a library, and maybe Eliot's fashion sense. I think that's really the only Dark Academia in it, so I wouldn't deem this a Dark Academia book at all. I thought this would be a bit of a like dark fantasy. This is a straight up horror book. It's a horror book, and I wasn't expecting that. So I think this just caught me off guard. Maybe if you know going in what to expect from this book, you might have enjoyed it a wee bit more than I did. This book, you have Tess and Elliot are the 2 main characters, and it is dual perspective. So you have Tess, she's kind of on a scholarship in this quite prestigious high school, and she has to do this kind of like work study program, so she works in the school's library. She also has like side jobs as well, so she's overworked and very exhausted. She's in this school because the school would only accept both her and her sister, not just her sister, so she kind of had to give up hopefully going to music school because she's a cello player. She's had to sacrifice a lot, so she's already, beginning of this book, very, very overworked and tired and stressed. And then you have Elliot as well, so he is from England, studying in America. His dad is the principal of the school. His mum is back in England and she's dying of cancer. Is scouring this library to find a cure for his mother, and he's finding them in these quite dark grimoire books, trying to find a way to help his mother. Then Tess and Elliot kind of stumble across this secret passageway in the library. They unleash this like demon from a book, and it's all the ramifications of that. I think because I knew this was young adult, I was kind of expecting a little bit of maybe a little bit like Tom Riddle's diary from Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Like I was kind of expecting that kind of level of maybe dark fantasy. I wouldn't say the second Harry Potter is very dark at all, and that's kind of what I was expecting. This is quite dark. Very violent, definitely a horror book, and very scary in places. For me, I did find the story very interesting. You did want to find out what happens. You did root for Tess and Elliot. You did want them to succeed in trying to trap this spirit again, but it definitely had a lot of pitfalls. I thought there was a lot of like in the plot going from point A to point B way too quickly, like without an explanation. Like, so in a way, and I suppose it's not the longest book in the whole world, but I feel like some parts of this were maybe oversimplified, or just kind of like as a reader just trying to accept things as they are rather than explaining what they are. It was okay. I thought the writing style was okay. I didn't think it was anything groundbreaking. I think the author wanted to do enemies to lovers, but I didn't really get that. I didn't really get the enemies part at all. I did think their kind of love story is really cute. I did think it was really, really nice. I do separately as characters did quite like both the characters. Maybe just some of the descriptions and some of the writing style and like was maybe just a little bit weak. In fairness, I did find a lot of like, especially maybe Elliot's backstory really, really heartbreaking. And then there's some things in this that are just too oversimplified. For example, there's like a description in the start of this book where Tess talks about like, oh yeah, I believe in ghosts. There's ghosts back in my, like the home I grew up in. There's no further explanation. There's no explanation why she doesn't believe in other things then. And it's just kind of like the author just putting something in the book that you're just supposed to accept without any explanation around it, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I just thought it was a little bit weak in those areas. I did find one or two plot holes as well. Like I thought, I hope this isn't too much of a spoiler. I mentioned this in my Vampathon vlog as well, but like when, let's say for example, a body is killed relating to this spirit, the body like evaporates. But then afterwards, Tess and Elliot still have like gore on them. So like really that should have evaporated as well along with the body. You know what I mean? I have to say I did quite like the ending of this. It definitely has like cliffhanger ending, very, very good. There's a point in this book that ink is used in this book. The author is trying to make ink like a very, very important factor for Tess's past and for how the spirit uses the library and stuff like that. And I don't know, just that just didn't hit the mark with me. I think there's like parts of this where Tess and Elliot think something's blood but it's actually ink, and then you're left, okay, was it ink or was it blood? Because like sometimes they were like, oh yeah, it was blood, no it was ink. There was parts of this where the importance of ink I feel like was again just in this book, just part of the book without really explaining why it's important. The author just kind of expects you to kind of just accept that ink is important. So yeah, I don't know, there's just a few weak points to this. I gave it 3 out of 5. I think if you know what this book is going into it, you will enjoy it a bit more than I did because I was expecting something else. But yeah, that's all I have to say about it. It was okay. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't the best thing I ever read. I thought it was okay. So actually during Vampathon as well, I actually started Tokyo Ghoul. So this is the first volume. It's the first manga I've ever read, and I have to say I really enjoyed it. I thought it would be difficult because obviously with the manga you're supposed to read from right to left, which of course in the West we read left to right, so I thought that would be hard to get used to, but actually it was very easy. And obviously this one is the setup for the series, so I'm very, very excited to keep going with the series. In this you have Ken, so he in this manga is a human and he becomes the first ever half human half ghoul kind of hybrid. And in this world you have humans and ghouls kind of living alongside each other, and ghouls, I suppose, I don't know, maybe vampire zombie-esque, they basically feed off humans. So yeah, I really like him as a main character. He's this little shy bookworm. He has this lovely friendship and his friend is human, and you know, Ken's coming to terms that he's not human anymore and he's not really a ghoul either. He's kind of introduced to kind of like ghoul turf wars and the politics there. He has to learn how to eat again because his appetite is obviously different. And I thought like the ending of this was really, really heartfelt and dramatic. So yeah, very, very good setup to a series. I thought very, very well done. So obviously this is definitely more so the world building volume, and I just thought it was done very, very well. So yeah, I really want to get to the rest of the series and watch the anime whenever I get some time, but really, really love this. So this book in Vampathon as well, I read this in its entirety in Vampathon, so if you want my breakdown thoughts, that will be in my vlog that I'll link. But this is Belladonna by Adeline Grace, and this is a new release. I think I got this from Fairy Loot, I believe. I get so many subscription boxes that I'm like, I don't know which box is from what. But I think I got this from Fairy Loot. I think the author's already announced that the sequel is called Foxglove, which will come out next year, so which I definitely am going to pick up. So yeah, in this book I quite liked this. I really quite liked this. Was it the most groundbreaking book I've ever read? No. Was it lacking something? Yes, but I did have a very good time reading it, and I do think it was a very good, enjoyable read. I actually thought this was a kind of a fantasy romance book. It is actually more of a thriller than anything. That romance is definitely a big plot in it, but this is a murder mystery thriller really more than anything. So in this book you have Signa, she's the main character. She basically can't die, so there's a few depictions of this where she should have died and the Grim Reaper comes to her to take her away, but she can't. So anytime she's in a position where she should die, she's in this kind of weird in-between place where she can interact with the Grim Reaper, or death, as he's described in this. So yeah, it's about her relationship with death, which is very, very, very interesting. Because of this, she feels like she's very cursed. Like, she feels like death is kind of like following her. She kind of goes from guardian to guardian to guardian, and kind of tragedy follows her wherever she goes. She just has to wait until she's 20 when she gets her own inheritance. At this point, she's 19 and a half. So yeah, her aunt dies. She has to go to this Thorn Grove, I think is the manor house where she goes to. So I think it's a distant cousin with that family in that manor. There was a recent tragedy. The mother of the family has passed away. The daughter is sick. The father's kind of like distraught, and the brother's just trying to kind of like hold things together. What I really liked about this is that Signa is very likable. I really liked her as a character. I read the author's description, and this is supposed to be Crimson Peak meets Bridgerton, and I do actually quite get that. So there is definitely this kind of creepy dark tone to it, because you're talking about like Signa can see spirits, you know, you have the Grim Reaper as one of the main characters, but it's nearly set in a like Austen, Bridgerton setting. So you have Signa, she just wants to be normal, she just wants to debut and be part of society and like meet a nice husband. Juliet wants to put all that stuff behind her. But yeah, she ends up just getting caught up in trying to figure out the mystery of why the mother was killed, and she teams up with the, I think it's the stable boy Silas. They try to solve the mystery basically. So there's romance. But yeah, what I really liked about this book is that I did not see the twists coming. I didn't at all. Like the murderer, there's another major twist, and I just did not see it. So I did really like this, and I read it throughout the week. I thought it was fun. It's another one of those books where it's like, okay, don't take it too seriously and you'll enjoy it. It is one of those books, and I'm very excited to get to Foxglove. I think I'm really looking forward to that. So yeah, I just thought this generally was quite a fun read. I didn't think like the romance was amazing or anything like that. I think the strong points of this is actually like the twists and turns and the mystery part of it, and I really quite liked the setting. I think if you think of Bridgerton with a supernatural twist, it is like a fun kind of setting to read from. So generally I just did enjoy this book. Not the best thing I've ever read, but definitely low 4 stars. Okay, and lastly, very quickly, because I don't think these need much of a review, I actually listened to Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I listened to these because I did a lot of traveling, lots of airplanes, lots of going home to my family. The only thing I feel like I can do when I'm on a bus and stuff is listen to audiobooks. So I ended up just finishing off the Harry Potter series that I was kind of listening to the last like 2 years or so. And yeah, again, I mean, like, these were one of my favorite books growing up. It's actually quite funny, when I read these for the first time when these were coming out, I loved Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, and I thought the Deathly Hallows, I think because it's not set in the school anymore, in Hogwarts anymore, it wasn't maybe as entertaining for me. But now as an adult, I'm like, it's totally flipped. I totally really love Deathly Hallows above Half-Blood Prince, but they're both quite good. You know, I really do love in Half-Blood Prince, I love like Draco's story in it. You don't actually have much happening. That's something I've realised. Not much happens until the very end, and I think that was done on purpose because so much happens in the Deathly Hallows. But you know, it's just like, these are a bit of a comfort read. I did enjoy it. I did have a good time listening to them. But yeah, definitely just as an adult, I much prefer, like, I suppose the plot and how everything's rounded up in the Deathly Hallows much more than, I think I preferred when I was younger, more the dynamics between the characters, where now as an adult I really just prefer the actual plot of it. Like, I care more about Harry and Voldemort than, you know, maybe like Ron and Hermione's romance subplot. But yeah, just definitely a comfort listen. I really enjoyed them. I did actually watch the Half-Blood Prince movie. I haven't watched the 2 Deathly Hallows movies since finishing this, so I think I'll do that soon, just again for a bit of a comfort watch. Yeah, oh my goodness. I hope this video is not too long. My throat is dead from talking so much. But yeah, what can you do? Anyway, but yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you like videos like this, please subscribe. I do anything book related on this channel. So book reviews like this, reading vlogs, book hauls, subscriptions, unboxings, TBRs, anything like that. I'll leave all my socials and a link to all these books in the description. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.